The time is 6:16. In common with most historians, the two men believe that Arthur was an authentic king of Britain who gave rise to the legends of Camelot, the Sword and the Stone, Guinevere and the Knights of the Round Table. Laurie Mayer reports.
The apparent proof that King Arthur was man, not myth, is kept at the bottom of a garden in Cardiff. This ancient sword-shaped stone inscribed Rex Artorious, King Arthur, comes from what's claimed to be the legendary king's last resting place. The stone is said to have arrived by boat up the Owenny River near Bridgend 1400 years ago. In their lifelong quest for the real King Arthur, amateur historians Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett have put their interpretation on ancient manuscripts.
An impeccably authentic manuscript of the year 822 tells of the body of a very important man with a stone being brought up this estuary. This is the secret burial of Arthur.
The delivery of Arthur's body upriver was, so the story goes, kept secret because his son was too young to succeed him. According to Wilson and Blackett, this is the very cave where the body was temporarily buried. They point to signs of a square-cut grave hewn by hand from the rock. They claim the local church provides evidence of Arthur's family links with the area. Burial stones they regard as vital clues in their historical detective work.
And this is the stone of Paul, son of Myrick, a brother of King Arthur.
At Ogmore Castle, just down the road, they cite another stone actually naming a King Arthmail, which they translate as Arthur. Wilson and Blackett have now filled several volumes with their exhaustive fieldwork and research, a mass of evidence from so many sources that even academics find it hard to contradict. This bleak hillside, 1,000 feet up, marks the end of their quest. In a church they describe as the Westminster Abbey of the Dark Ages. Wilson and Blackett claim it's cost them their homes, their jobs, and £100,000 to find this spot and say with confidence that here lies King Arthur.
This short film concerns a portion, a part of research that's been ongoing for 18 years. It's not arcane, difficult research in that it's difficult to get access to the sources. What we want to show first is that the sources on which this research is based are abundant. We're talking about King Arthur, and what we're going to show very briefly is that King Arthur was two people. One, a person around 350 to 400 AD, and the other is 6th century descendant Arthur II of around 503 to 579 AD. In other words, King Arthur of legend is two separate people, one fighting the Romans, one fighting the Saxons and the Angles 200 years later. And what has emerged very clearly is that not only is Arthur two people, but we can actually trace both the Arthurs. In this short film, we're going to show how to trace King Arthur II, one part of the evidence involved in that. Now, the first thing we would like to exhibit is that the information we use is the same information used by every other would-be investigator or author or researcher into King Arthur. The Mavillion Archaeology of Wales, this tome produced in the beginning of the 19th century, is falling apart because you either keep an old book on a shelf and never open it, but if you use it and open it, it falls apart. It contains several hundred of the most ancient historical poems in Wales, masses of evidence. It contains all the major histories. History, the Brut of Tysilio, the Brut of Griffith ab Arthur, the Brut of Ieuan Brechfa, the history by Gruffydd, the King of North Wales, the Brut of the Saxons, the Brut of the Tywysogion, the princes, version 1, verses 2, all the Welsh triads, the lives of the saints, everything. So it's all available, a heck of a lot, massive information from the Dark Ages in one cover. Anybody can get at it. If we look at the English information, we've got the Brutes of England, 168 surviving manuscripts before the age of printing began with Caxton, where the histories were placed handwritten for. And the Brutes of England have something very interesting to say. Can you see that, Tony? Because my eyes are a little...
There's one particular relevant reference on page 80 here, on this Brute of England. I'll quote the second paragraph. States, and when Arthur has put his knights fed at the April after next soon, obviously meaning next spring, into Britain, his own land, and after Whitsuntide next soon, by counsel of his barons, he would be crowned King of Glamorgan.
Which is a meaningful statement, because it's telling us that Arthur II was known and crowned as a King of Glamorgan. Now if we begin to look at this, and we've got this in 168 English proofs, the English, everybody before Henry Tudor thought Arthur was a King of Glamorgan. We have a further mystery, because in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, we find something equally strange to say, the Parker Chronicle.
The Parker Chronicle on page 110, there's actually a caption here. And in 943, in the year King Edmund gave Glastonbury into the charge of St Dunstan, who later became his first abbot, Glastonbury wasn't founded until 942, so therefore it could obviously have no connection with either King Arthur I or Arthur II.
Perfect, this is what we're after. Glastonbury has nothing to do with King Arthur. When we start to look at other entries, this is from the Transactions, the Honourable Society of Commodorium, 1948. We find here lists of the kings of Glamorgan and Gwent. We'll show them later in detail. But the lists of the kings of Glamorgan also include a King Arthur, son of Myric, son of Tudric. And it doesn't matter which way you look at them and which way they present them. These king lists show an Arthur of the 6th century. But what we're getting at is that masses of evidence is available to anybody on the library shelves, readily available. In South Wales here, they taught King Arthur was the son of King Myric and the grandson of Tudric. Until about 1924, they were teaching it in the schools. It's common knowledge to the children. We've got a book here, printed 1891, and a couple of little entries. Can you pick them out for me? I think there's one there.
Well, first of all, the book is The Cymry by Rowan. On page 77 there's a caption. Arthur the Mac Uther, or the Terrible, was in fact the son of Myric, son of Theodoric of Tintern, prince of the Silures.
Okay.
And what we're trying to say is, you don't have to read our lips to make your mind up. It's a question of actual vast documentation. On the next page, it continues the caption, by the heroism of Arthur, grandson of Theodoric of Tintern, and the Roman magnificence of Caerleon.
Okay. Arthur is the grandson of Tudric, Theodoric. So people were printing this, and you can find it in dozens and dozens of books and manuscripts. There must be several hundred books between 1760 and 1920, all saying Arthur, son of Myric, grandson of Theodoric. Here you've got a copy readily available of the